Well, today South Africans witness open looting in full view of our cameras. Many will be wondering what we will wake up to tomorrow and what the repercussions will be. For more analysis on the situation, I'm joined by Tanveer Jeewa, legal and communications consultant at the International Commission of Jurists. Tanveer, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. So we heard what the President had to say about law enforcement and the deployment. Is that enough, though? Because we didn't see many people being deterred today.
Thank you very much, Shahan. I think this is specifically important to speak about the statement that the President just made, because we are in dire need of political leadership right now. And I think what we were looking for is a bit more of action and maybe more transparency about the deployment of the military. I mean, I just found out through a statement published on social media that the deployment of the military will last for 3 months, something that wasn't really clear throughout the day, although the decision was made, we were made aware of the decision that the military would be deployed. So I don't think this statement was enough at all. I think it called for maybe ceasing of violence, but I think at the moment what really we wanted to know is possibly what actions are being taken, what other actions are in place right now for maybe even elongating the COVID, what about the COVID grants and so on. Just anything that we could really grab on in terms of the policing response to the protesters.
Yeah, I'm going to hold you right there. Just stay with us, right? Because we are getting live visuals of the army in Greyville in Durban, where our reporter Desan Tathia is. Desan, just tell us what's happening.
Well, Shahan, we were in the Durban CBD and we saw that there were reports of the SANDF members being spotted on the beachfront. But in driving around here, we did come across them in Greyville near the DLI Hall. This is where we've seen 2 of these vehicles. They are filled to capacity with SANDF members. As you know, they wouldn't really engage with us, but from the direction that they're heading in now, it would appear that they are heading towards the Durban CBD. You should be able to see all of those members that are inside those vehicles now. This is as good a time as any, Shahan, for them to be heading into the CBD, because just a short while ago, that looting that we've been seeing throughout the day was continuing. One of the malls around there, the workshop, was under siege. Metro Police were outnumbered. We saw them trying to ensure that people did not enter, but despite their best efforts and being outnumbered, people just continued to take items out of that mall. They were walking across we saw them doing this for over an hour. It seemed like a never-ending stream of people that were heading out. And it's been pretty much the same throughout most of the city center, in fact. Shahan, I'm just going to interrupt for a second. Hello, sir, how are you? Sorry. You need to speak to me?
I'm fine, and yourself?
Yes.
Just want to confirm, Avan, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm sorry, we're from ENCA. We were just covering the story of the deployment.
Okay. From whom have given you the permission to...
Shahan? Sorry, sir?
The permission to come and do the further deployment, who have given you the permission, sir?
It was after the President's announcement today, so we were traveling through the city to talk about the deployment. Yeah,
that's why then I come next to you, because it's prohibited then just to come there and then do everything as you wish.
Okay.
As the SNTF.
Thank you. Understood. Thank you very much. Shahan, as you've heard there, we will have to wrap now. I will engage with this member off camera.
Yeah, last I checked, we are allowed to be in public spaces when the SANDF has been deployed. But okay, Desan, we'll leave you to try and work that one out for us. We'll come back to you as soon as you are able to speak to us again. Desan Tathia is in Greyville. So, Tanveer, of course, that's what we saw happen now in Durban. The SANDF is apparently going into the CBD where the looting continues. And, you know, while the President was speaking, we had live visuals of the Queensmead Mall being looted, in total contrast to what he was saying. Is this going to deter these people, these criminals who are out there stealing goods, destroying property?
I think it's also very interesting, Shahan, maybe if I can answer your question and also draw on what your colleague kind of just went through with SANDF not allowing ANCA to be there. It just shows a total lack of transparency. As you mentioned on live TV, the media is absolutely allowed to report and cover on protests. So I think it's something else that's very interesting, in addition to just the SANDF being able to deter people who are looting or not. In response to your question that you just asked me, I'd like to point out that, of course, a lot of the actions that we're seeing stemmed through actual and legitimate protests to begin with, but then we've seen opportunistic catching on to these moments and looting. But I do think that SANDF is never hopefully deployed when there's no other alternative, but rather as a last resort. So if it was deemed necessary for SANDF to be deployed in that moment, I do think it will make a difference because of heavy presence of military, because as we have heard from the statement of the president recently, there are police members who are forced to not be on leave anymore just to increase capacity. So it sounds like there were also a capacity problem before. So I would think that the military deployment should be able to deter people from looting. But we really caution against the use of excessive force from the police services and from the military as well.
Yeah, it's a fine line, right? Because we have people who have been very aggressive in destroying property, etc. But you can't have law enforcement officials willy-nilly going in there and shooting at people with live ammunition, etc. So that's the balance, I guess, they have to strike. But in terms of crime intelligence even, you know, there are questions about whether or not those officials are working and feeding information to police officers, because we haven't seen police officers get a grip on the situation over the past couple of days. The reality is we have over 55 million people in this country, and we have around 200,000 police officers. So the numbers far outweigh each other when it comes to police being effective. But there is a way to get around this, obviously, and is enough being done in that regard, with the president saying that, you know, all of the relevant departments within crime and criminal justice will be meeting to try to work this out and change their approach tomorrow? Or is that too late?
Shahan, I think at this stage it is a bit late. I don't want to say too late, but it is definitely late, because although the military has been deployed for almost maybe half a day already now, what really we have been calling for is rather for political accountability and leadership. You have seen over the past 2 days there has been incitement on social media, calls from the former President Zuma family members to ask for people to gather, to ask for people to actually cause unrest. And rather we would ask for political leadership, and in fact even the Jacob Zuma Foundation to come out and call for this unrest to stop, because at this stage we need to accept that, as you mentioned, there are not that many police members who can tackle the amount of looting and the unrest and the violence going on right now, which is why the military is being deployed in the first place. But we really need to look into alternatives, because it doesn't look like policing will be the end of what's going on, especially, like you said, because SAPS and SANDF as well need to actually toe the line and respect the guidelines and not use excessive force when it comes to dealing with civilians.
Yeah, and let's move over to what we heard in the Constitutional Court today. Of course, Dali Mpofu, acting on behalf of Jacob Zuma, saying that he should be released pending the outcome of this rescission application. He also says, and I'll quote, that it would be cruel and degrading punishment for Zuma to remain behind bars as he awaits this decision. You no doubt listened to those arguments. What do you say?
Well, I think because former President Zuma has been crying out loud that he is not being treated like any other accused or any other person, and he's not being treated as equal before the law, this is quite ironic, because if anything, the Constitutional Court is really making so much space for him to come and argue his case, when in fact we could even argue that anyone else would probably not get the chance, because as you've probably heard many lawyers say, in the past, it's a rescission application is a very, very narrow technical legal ground. And in fact, they're using, Mr. Zuma's lawyers are using this as a backdoor to an appeal, which is not the case, or it shouldn't be, at least. So I do not believe that President Zuma should be released in the meantime, as I do not think any other accused or prisoners have been treated this way, and the case has definitely not been made for it in the court.
All right, thank you so much for your time and your insight. Appreciate it. Tanveer Jeewa, Legal and Communications Consultant at the International Commission of Jurists.